Alright guys, so before we get started, I just want to explain that this section is basically the JavaScript language from scratch. So if you're not new to JavaScript, you're going to know a lot of these concepts, but I'd still suggest watching them, maybe even with double speed on. Even if you know this stuff, a refresher isn't going to hurt. We're going to talk about data types, conversion, functions, loops, arrays, object literals, all the core fundamentals of the language. Okay, we're going to work in the console for the most part, and then in the next section we'll start on the document object model and working in the UI with events and so on. So what I want to do first is just set up our sandbox, which is very simple. It's just going to be an HTML file and a JavaScript file, and I'll go over how to include internal script tags as well as how to link an external JavaScript file with script tags. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Alright, so I'm on my desktop. We already have Visual Studio Code installed, and that's the text editor that I'll be using. So what I'm going to do is create a new folder here, and I'm going to call it JS_sandbox. Okay, and this is what we're going to work in for quite a while. So I'm going to open it with Visual Studio Code by right-clicking and saying Open with Code. But if you're not using this text editor, just open up this folder in whatever you're using. Alright, I'm going to just close the welcome screen up, and you can see we have an empty JS sandbox folder over here. So I'm just going to create two files. One is index.html, and then I'm also going to create one called app.js. Okay, so that's what I'm going to choose to call my main JavaScript file. Alright, now in the index.html we're going to create a basic structure. Visual Studio Code includes Emmet by default, which allows me to use shortcuts, and I can just do an exclamation tab, and that'll give me this basic HTML structure with head and body tags. Alright, so I'm just going to change the title here to JavaScript Sandbox, and I'm going to say this is section 2, and then I'm going to put an H1 down here and put the same thing. So we'll just say JavaScript Sandbox section 2. Alright, now I'm going to save this, and I'm using Live Server as you saw me set up back in the environment setup video. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and say Open with Live Server. That's going to go ahead and open this up in a browser. You can see the H1. I can open up my console in the browser with F12, and we're going to go over the console in the next video. But what I want to do now is just show you how to insert JavaScript into your HTML file. Alright, so you can do two things. You can do it inside the HTML file, or you can link to an external file like our app.js. So if I were to just put in script tags here, I could actually run JavaScript. So I could say like alert, which is a window function that will just show a pop-up with whatever I put in here. So if I say hello and I save that, you'll see that it'll automatically run. Now, it automatically runs when I save because I'm using Live Server. If you're not using something like that, you'll have to reload the page in order for it to run. Okay, now this putting a script tag in your HTML I wouldn't recommend unless it's maybe one or two lines of JavaScript that you're using. So we're not going to do that for this course. We're going to go ahead and link to our app.js by just putting in script tags and then setting source src equal to app.js. Alright, now if we had the JavaScript file in another folder, like a JS folder, we'd have to say JS/app.js. Alright, but since it's in the same directory or the same folder, we don't have to do that. So let's save it. Let's go to app.js and let's try out an alert. So we'll say alert, we'll say hello world and save, and it runs, and now we know that app.js is linked. Alright, so now we have our little sandbox to work in. In the next video, we're going to explore the Google Chrome console.